Well, hi there. The U-boat is finished. Oh, actually, what? Of these four lids, there's one handle's come off. I've got to put a handle on there. But apart from that, it's finished after long last. Largely because I don't know anything much about naval stuff or let alone U-boats. So that's partly why it took so long. That and, having to study YouTube videos on U-boats and so on and so forth, and trying to work out what's what and where. And
That's a very busy, whatever it's called, deck.
what, this deck?
No, where they're all standing.
The conning tower, yeah. Well, I've as far as possible, I've set this to be cruising along the surface in the Atlantic. And I think, as far as I can gather, it's a Mark 7, which was the most numerous form of U-boat. I think this is one modified to late in the war. So there's no longer a deck gun. Very early in the war, it was cheaper to surface alongside an Allied cargo ship and sink it with shells from the deck cannon, because torpedoes are expensive. Once ships had got into proper convoys with decent escorts, that became quite dangerous. So it was much more the common practice to approach underwater and loose torpedoes. If it was actually just on patrol without seeing anything, the torpedo doors here would be closed, but I sort of put them open for dramatic effect, I have to admit. Equally, I've raised both periscopes. Those I don't think would be raised if it was on the surface. Because the thing was, they could travel faster on the surface than below the sea. If they were below the sea, they had to run on, they couldn't run on the diesels, they had to run on the electric motors, which the diesels powered up the batteries for. So there were masses of batteries in here somewhere. And just on electric power, they travelled slower. But late in the war, they became much more threatened by aircraft, because the Allies' convoys, they had, amongst other ways of combating U-boats, they had so-called MAC ships, which are merchant armed carriers. And they were just cargo ships which had been modified by just putting a deck across the top and plonking aircraft on it. There were no hangars underneath or anything. So they sat there and were the swordfish, for instance. That strange, antiquated but really rather effective biplane was used a lot. And submarines began to suffer an awful lot from air attack. And the air attack could happen really quite fast. It could happen at night. Allied aircraft began to have radars that would detect, I believe, even the periscope just sticking up. So if they were on the surface, where they could travel more effectively, they need to be on guard at all times. That's why this looks so busy. Because I managed to buy 9 crew figures from ICM, I think. I think they're resin. I had a lot of trouble painting those. I washed them with alcohol, then painted them, and then realised the paint just rubbed off. So I rubbed all the paint off and cleaned them again, washed them with soap and water, dried them, undercoated them, and then proceeded them there and painted them. And that's the result.
I'm just going to pause you now, and then I can do some close-ups.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, Kathy was just saying it looks a lot more alive than when she last saw it. And I think, that's the benefit to me of putting a crew in. It gives you some sense of size. This is the 1/72 scale kit, and the crew are the same. So in 1/72, a 6-foot man is an inch high, just for guidance. So this late stage of the war, there were still a lot of Mark 7s about, but the latest ones, like this one, have been modified. There's a schnorkel which hinges up from the deck. It does actually on this kit, though it's a bit of a struggle. So that would come up here. with that, they could actually travel on the diesels under the water, just on periscope. So they became safer again, relatively, from air attack. But air attack was still the big threat. So what you see, there's a conning tower crew here. It's got 3 officers, one of whom I've put there just to be able to put it there, and 2 sets of gun crews. I think that's a 37mm cannon. These are twin 20mm cannon. And, you know, they would have to start firing as soon as they saw a plane coming. The planes could come in even at night with their radar, turn on what was called a ley light, this massive searchlight held under the wing of an aircraft, spotlight the thing and straddle it with depth charges before it could crash dive some of the time. So it's busy there. I think that's a radar for picking up aircraft, I think. There's a direction finder, other bits and pieces. The deck came as a stick-on addition, quite nice, but it looked like a very pale pine decking. And apparently the decking in reality was coated in some black anti-corrosion stuff, which faded rapidly. So I've darkened it and faded it a bit and scrubbed it just to weather it a bit more. And the big challenge for me was the amount of weathering, because these things sat in seawater, which is notoriously corrosive, for months and months on end. So there was massive amounts of rust, oil coming out of these drain holes and at the front. And I'm pretty happy with that, you know, from what I can understand of U-boats. So there it is. I've got some elastic thread I use for aircraft rigging, or would do, except I struggle with it. I was going to use it here, but in fact I found it again was a huge struggle. So I went back to the black cotton supplied in the kit and used that, made sure it's tight enough, and super glued it at the ends and put these, I think those are tensioners. And the other thing I did was made a better stand. You know, the one supplied in the kit, you end up with this thing squatting on the ground, which doesn't look right. It just felt a lot better to build a stand. This is had bits and pieces of leftover stuff from work I've done around the house, and stick that into it so it sort of floats higher up.
Okay,
in the
give
air.
us your pointer. You get a bit careless with that. Go
Careless.
on. I'm going to sit down again now.
Can I? Oh.
I gave him a pointer because I thought it might be better, but gets a bit carried away.
Well, you did come and ask.
Right, are you done?
Yep, that's it. Thank you for watching.
So what are you going to do next?
I think I'm going to do this. It's an ancient Tamiya kit. I've had in my stash for a long time.
Wait, it won't. Oh, there we go. A Chevrolet.
Yeah. I think they just modified them a bit to using the dirt. I think they were only rear-wheel drive, not even four-wheel drive.
Oh.
And they just did huge long patrols in the desert, 2 or 3 trucks, to observe enemy movements way behind the lines in the northern desert, sometimes to attack airfields. Because I've also got from ResiCast, I don't know if they still exist, a set of additions for this truck. So it's not lots of packaging and extra weapons.
Oh, you had that for your Sherman tank?
Yeah, I've got something similar.
Yeah.
I've got a Sherman
Yeah.
DD from the same company.
Yeah.
So I'll have to build something.
Same packaging. We could have just whipped it off the Sherman, saved some money.
But it should turn out to be quite a nice kit. It's got just some very subtle camouflage on it and a lot of weathering.
God, I took the pointer away and you still carry on.
Yeah, well, you did ask. Don't have to ask.
Can't see your face.
You know. Right. Ta-ta. Until the next time.
Ta-ta.
Au revoir.
No, what do they say? Ta-ta does sound a bit World War II-ish.
Oh, good.
I think.
Well, the whole thing, the whole storyline here is a bit World War II.
Is it?
Yes.
Apart from you,
Well,
a bit too young for that.
I'm a World War II baby, almost.
Okay, thanks
Well,
for that.
3 years later.
Yeah, thanks for your attention to this matter.
Yes, very kind.